I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to graph this piecewise defined function using your graphing calculator. All the keys that I push will show up over here. So if you miss anything, they go in order, so you can just pick them up from there. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to graph these each individually. The first thing we have to do is graph this very first part, 4 for x is less than or equal to -1. Okay, so let's start doing that. So I'm gonna push my y equals 2 key first, and I'm gonna put parentheses around 4. And the way our calculator works is after that, if it's a piecewise defined function, we have to hit the times key, and then we have to put the restrictions on the domain. So I'm going to put parentheses around the domain. The domain, again, was x is less than or equal to 2. So I'm going to actually put that in. X is less than or equal to -2. So I'm going to put an x. The way I get the inequality signs, those are located under this math test key. Okay. So I'm going to hit second test, and then there's my inequality signs, less than or equal to -2, so I can either push 6 or I can just arrow down to it. Okay, that's the first part of the piecewise defined function, and then I have to separate each part by a plus sign, so plus. Now I'm going to go to the second part of the piecewise defined function. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this part in here. This second part is quite difficult. You can't put it how it looks there. It doesn't quite work that way. We have to put special things in there. So let's go ahead and do that next. Okay, so I'm going to start by putting parentheses, or a parenthesis, x plus 1 times. Okay, now I have to separate the two parts of the inequality. I'm going to start in by putting in -2 is less than x, -2 is less than x. Okay, that's the first part. And then the way the calculator is, you can't put it all at once. You have to separate them by the word and. The and is also located under the test key. So I go under second, test, and then I go under logic. And then number 1 is and. Okay, now I have to put the second part in. The second part, if you look over here, is x is less than 3. So I have to put that part in next. Okay. Finally, I have to put another plus sign and then put the last part of my piecewise defined function. So finally, the last thing I have to do is put this part in. And then we're almost done. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that next. Okay, so I put parentheses, -x. Make sure you hit the negative, not the minus. Okay, times the restriction on the domain, which is x is greater than or equal to 3. Okay, now there's only one more thing I have left to do, and this is in particular if you have a TI-84. We're going to go back to the very beginning of the graph. I'm sorry, the very beginning of what we punched in here. Until we get to right here. Okay, what we want to do is we want to change this to a dash line. Otherwise, our graphing calculator, depending on the type of calculator you have, may connect them all together. So what you want to do is hit enter until you get a dash line. That's a really thick solid line. We don't want that one. Okay, there we go. That's the dash line that we want. Okay, so now we're ready to graph it. For my window, I'm going to pick the same window as my graph paper to the left there, which is -8 to 8. Okay, mine's already set up like that, so mine's fine. Otherwise, you may have to do that. And if I hit graph, it looks just like what we drew earlier in the earlier video. The only downfall about the graphing calculator, again, the graphing calculator is not perfect, is you can't really tell where the open and the closed circles are. There would actually be an open circle here, an open circle here, and closed circles here, and that part does not show up on the graphing calculator. So that's the only downfall about it. Okay, so there concludes our 1.5 piecewise defined function worksheet.